if you follow some of my adventures on LinkedIn, I tend to stick to simpler models, not use neural networks, things like that. I keep things as simple as possible to show that you can do really amazing things and still keep it very simple. You don't need a neural network for everything. You don't need a terabyte of training data. Uh, for
Yeah.
most NLP things, you really like if I were to create a classifier right now to detect hate speech, I could build it off of 4,000 rows of data. Like you don't need a
Mm.
million rows of data. You just need examples for it to learn from. And it might not be a perfect model, and a convolutional neural network might do it better, might do it 2% better, but I don't need that 2%, and so one of my dreams, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen, is that I would like to find a way to actually help smaller to mid-sized companies, because I think that a lot of people are intimidated by the large companies, because you always hear about the Facebooks and the Intels and the Microsofts and the IBMs and all this cool stuff that these big guys are doing, but screw that. We can do cool stuff with tiny amounts of data if you just allow yourself to explore it, and you allow yourself to realize that you don't have to build things as complicated as they are, and a model that can predict at 85% accuracy for cheap is, in my opinion, as valuable to me as or more valuable to me
Yeah.
a model that I'm going to have to rack up a $1,000 AWS bill every month for, like I can
Yeah.
run.
You could put together that whole project and deploy it on a website and have your product done in the weeks that it would take for
Yeah,
these large companies to just train up their massive GPT-3 model, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like,
There's a post I saw recently that was saying that AWS is not cheap. To create a model, you have to have a server that has this specs, and it's going to cost you $100,000 a year, and that's crap. I have my own T2 micro, so like the smallest that you can possibly get, and it's running 5 NLP models on it 24/7. And this is a tiny, tiny server. And I deployed it. I managed like four very old ML servers at the company where I work for, and so I've seen the old way of deploying ML code, and I kind of follow that model because I'm not super sophisticated. I just keep things simple. But I've got these models running on a T2 micro, and my bill is like $50 a month. But that server is doing way more than just that NLP stuff. I've got it running scraping all the time.
oh
I've got
man.
another server I'm using. I've got SageMaker going every now and then, and so you don't need to spend $100,000 to get into ML. Like a small company could get into ML or NLP for dirt cheap, and people should realize that. They need to know that, But if you only follow what's going on LinkedIn, you get the impression that you have to have the most state of the art, and you really don't. you
Yeah.
know Random forest is still wicked. You can still it's still outstanding, and LDA is outstanding for NLP and naive Bayes as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
you don't need a neural network for everything, and I say that so many times.
Yeah, there's so one of the projects I've worked on in the past was robotic vacuums, right? And helping come up with some algorithms from some low cost sensors because it's a consumer product and have it make decisions on whether to follow a wall or make a turn here and there. And the best performing thing that we did was decision trees, right?
Mhm.
Like a couple of those put together in a sort of ensemble because in the end, you're on an embedded platform, so you really can't train up a massive model for it. But some of these tools, like you said, are, I mean, the basic ones, they're still extremely powerful. And when you have either limited resources, either on your end product, or limited resources in your ability to develop because you're a startup or you're just getting into this and you don't want to drop $1,000 on a graphics card for your GPU and then all the other components, uh, you can do so much with so little. And especially since the main thing is good data,
Yep.
that bit is practically free.
Yep.
If you know where to look around on the internet and see if you can find something that interests you. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like the models that I did end up deploying, they can run on my Microsoft Surface laptop. I don't have a big PC with a ton of RAM in it at home. I do things as cheap as possible, as light as possible, and to show that it can work. And so I know that there are bigger and better ways to do things, but I'm one person. And if I'm trying to solve a data problem, I don't need the most complicated way to do things. You can do things cheap. So I really hope that message spreads.